headphones on. Okay, but here we go.
It's a king's pawn opening from Wesley, so will he revert back to the recommendations on his chessable course? Okay, he brings his knight out, and Levon Aronian doesn't allow Wesley to go into the main line of the Italian game. He plays the Petrov defense, one of the most solid openings in chess. We see a trade of pawns early on. White's knight taking a pawn, now the black knight is taking a pawn, and complete symmetry right now. Will we see Levon Aronian continue to play copycat and push his pawn in the center, or will we see him just develop a bishop? Yeah, Wesley, so right now he's played a very solid opening, but he needs to create winning chances. This type of symmetrical pawn structure is not really going to help him too much. He needs a lot of energy now in order to create anything at all. Black is the first to castle his king. White now will do the same. Both sides will develop their pieces. And, OK, first pushing a pawn, just restricting the black light squared bishop, stopping it from coming out. And, yeah, next white will castle. It's going to be very, very balanced at this early stage. Levon Aronian seems well prepared. He's been playing this quite a bit lately, this opening, which has been very popular among players such as Vladimir Kramnik in the past and Fabiano Caruana, some world-class players. But, yeah, either way, solid, solid stuff from both sides.
Yes, and so far, this has all been played before. Levon is following the paths of theory. And it's all been recommended as well. It's difficult to see how Wesley's actually going to get an advantage here.
Yeah, it's tough to see him even getting a playable position where he can outmaneuver his opponent. This type of opening is well known for leading to very quick, very forcing draws. So Wesley will try and keep all the pieces on if he can, because he needs to simply. He needs this win. So, OK, he's actually given up a pawn temporarily in the centre of the board. White's rook coming across there. I say temporarily because black's pawns in the middle, they're doubled, they're isolated, they're weak, and white will sooner or later pick one of them off and restore the material balance. So, OK, I'm slightly surprised Levon Aronian rushed to capture that pawn. White's knight will now try and go for black's pawn in the middle of the board, which cannot be defended by any of his own black pawns. And I think we'll see Wesley bring his knight out to the side. Both the white knights are looking at that black central pawn, and that's why Levon Aronian removes one of the white knights.
He takes these decisions very, very quickly. You know, bishop takes knight.
It's committal.
It is totally committal. And I was reading an interview, actually, just recently between Demis Hassabis, who was the founder of DeepMind, and he was saying that chess is such an exquisite game because of the difference between knight and bishops. The fact that they're worth 3 points, but they have totally different roles.
Yeah, Demis Hassabis responsible as well for AlphaZero, one of the kind of revolutionary moments in world chess, simply.
Does it seem that AlphaZero agrees with them being worth the same, or will AlphaZero sort of value one of them higher?
I think in general, AlphaZero prefers bishops, but especially when they're a pair. It's not afraid of giving up 2, 3 pawns sometimes just to get the bishop pair. So it's still difficult. It still depends on the structure. It depends on so many different factors. But in general, computers do seem to prioritise the bishops. That's why we're surprised, I think, here in the studio by Levon Aronian giving up his bishop very quickly. Yes, black is still temporarily a pawn up, but black's pawn in the middle of the board, as we mentioned, is likely to fall at some point. Actually, Wesley now clearing the way for the white queen in the centre to go and take, kind of support the capture of that pawn later on. So white's bishop stepping out of the way, retreating. Bishops are long-range pieces, so it's OK to retreat them. But now white's knight is the one going to go and take that black pawn in the centre next turn. Levon Aronian needs to justify his last few moves, because if white is able to regain the pawn, then white does have the 2 bishops long term. Also, black does have a potential isolated pawn. Even if one of the pawns drops off, black will be left with an isolated pawn behind it.
Yeah, and how would you think about defending this pawn in the middle of the board, or would you just abandon that?
Yeah.
Well,
he abandons it.
He abandons it and leaves it to its own fate. And of course, Wesley says, "Yes, please, I'll grab that."
Okay. Trade of knights, and now Levon Aronian jumping into the middle with his knight. It's really difficult to say whether Levon Aronian, is he still in opening preparation, because he's played instantly up to this point. You think he's freestyling?
He's totally freestyling, because Wesley played a very unusual idea according to the database, and Aronian took a pause and then reacted in his own way. But it seems to be his strategy here. On the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour in general, play quickly, put pressure on the opponents, trust your instincts. And here he's just dived into the center with his knight, and there's actually a threat on the board. Black is threatening to develop the dark squared bishop to attack the queen and also continue along that diagonal and attack the pawn on f2.
Yeah, for example, if white is careless, if white, say, just brings the bishop out to put pressure on the black knight, then black's bishop does jump out, protected by its knight, so it cannot be captured. And once the white queen moves away, then, as Ivanka mentions, bishop takes pawn, check, again supported by the knight. The bishop and knight duo here, the combo, is really deadly. And this would actually cost white a rook on the next turn after white escapes from the check. So right now, that is the threat in the position. Black's bishop coming out. White can deal with this in a few ways. I'm expecting Wesley So to just maybe pick up a pawn, push this pawn forward, control this square, stop the black bishop utilizing that square. Or, if he wants, he can also maybe step back with his queen. I'm not sure where, but step back with his queen, getting ready to meet the bishop advance by a trade of bishops. I'd be reluctant to go for this one just because I'm so attached to my bishop pair. I don't want to see one of them being traded off. And that is why, personally, I would love, if possible, to push this pawn forward. Either way, Wesley So will try one of these two strategies, and then later on he'll bank on the fact that black does have this weak pawn in the center, this isolated pawn, which is a long-term target.
Yes, and there's also another trick in the position. Just if the black bishop, white's black bishop, white's dark squared bishop, I'll get there. Okay, moves to this square, then the black bishop can actually attack the queen from another direction and try to net a pawn. And David, your move is on the board.
Yep, so after the black knight jumped forward, the white pawn has stepped forward, covering this key square, this key launch pad that the black bishop wanted to use. So very, very sensible from Wesley. If he gets one or two more moves, I think, if he gets time to bring out, maybe push this pawn forward and then bring out his bishop, I think he's got full control over the position. So Levon Aronian needs to strike now, and he needs to strike quickly before white gets organised, before white gangs up against this weak pawn. Aronian, I would expect him normally to slow down right now, but with the speed he's been playing at, maybe we'll see a surprise or two from him. It's hard to continue attacking for black, meanwhile, unless you get your bishop in. So maybe this move, maybe attacking the white queen, driving her back, and maybe bring the black queen out. Something like that. Just he needs the momentum. He needs to keep creating threats on every turn.
Would it be worth your while as black, instead of attacking the queen directly, you try to be a bit sneaky and go, I'm going to attack the pawn first. And no.
No, not this pawn.
That I didn't think of that one.
Okay.
That is now on my radar, so I do like that one. But I was thinking with the bishop, to attack the pawn first on f2.
Okay.
And then the whole idea is that once the bishop gets driven back, once you step up and attack it, then you go and attack the queen. And the tricky point, which might not be so tricky, it might be just a disaster, is that when the queen does come out to the square that you actually highlighted, the b6 square, then maybe you're attacking two pawns and also potentially some other ideas on the board.
Yeah, definitely. This type of thing will be on Levon Aronian's radar. I think he has to try something like this. As we mentioned, it's all about speed, not just on the clock this time, but also in position. And he does choose to kick back the white queen and then bring his queen out. So we've actually got this position, but just without the insertion of this one move. And now Wesley So just defends his pawn. And again, in the current position, white is eyeing up this pawn in the centre, black is eyeing up this pawn. And it's really, really tense. It's heating up already. We're only just out of the opening, but it's already reached its critical stage, this game.
Wow. All right. Wesley So fighting for a win in this game. That's the only result for him. Can we sort of see it on his the way he's playing, the moves he's chosen, that this is just win? All I'm thinking about. Yeah,
it's a win in a different way. It's not all-out attack against the opponent's king. It's just he sees the bishop pair, he sees the better pawn structure, and he's going to try and cling onto it. So being very, very ambitious at this early stage, Wesley So. I do like the fact as well that he's kept up with Aronian's speed on the clock, because not every player can do that. And I think that's one strategy that really makes Aronian feel uncomfortable, is when someone matches his speed with confidence, and Wesley seeming to try this strategy at least now. So, yeah, definitely all three results in play, all three results possible, but Wesley must be relatively happy with the opening.
And Levon Aronian, he's going to face Magnus tomorrow, and he hasn't had the best tournament so far. 7 points, lost the 2 previous matches. Levon Aronian, very up and down for him this finals.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe it's the fact he's moved to the US, you know, with so many things going on.
I mean, yesterday he lost his match to Duda just because he overlooked a one-move checkmate. Yeah. So that has to hurt. And before that, he's definitely lost in the rapid portion a few times. And we have a few moves on the board. Levon has actually protected his pawn with his rook, and now white has blunted the dark squared bishop that black has, and just solidified the pawn structure on the left.
Okay, and now a slightly surprising move from Levon Aronian, trying to find a better diagonal for this black bishop. As Ivanka mentioned, there's no real fruits, there's no real kind of productivity for this black bishop now facing towards that left side of the board, so maybe that black bishop wants to point towards the white king. But first, Wesley So takes the time to kick away the black queen, attack it with his own bishop, developing at the same time, and now black's queen has shifted across. This is a clear signal now from Levon Aronian that he's eyeing up white's king. Look at the black queen. She's lined herself up. Black's bishop as well, pointing in that direction. Black's knight as well in that half of the board, near the white king. Slightly scary for Wesley So, but I don't think there are any immediate threats. So he still has a move or two before Levon Aronian whips up some attack. And Wesley So needs to profit from these next two moves. He needs to use them wisely before, for example, black starts pushing the f-pawn forward. Black's f-pawn can start marching down the board and start hitting things, destabilising white along the way. And yeah, I would expect Wesley maybe to take one time out in a moment or two to improve that white rook in the left corner. That's the only piece not really participating, doing anything. So he could, for example, shift it across. Maybe if he's feeling ambitious, he can lift it up the board to the 5th rank to start attacking some pawns in that direction. And actually,
he offers a trade of bishops, which is also very thematic, because often when you're told when your opponent has pawn weaknesses, trade off those pieces. It's easier to exploit those weaknesses in the endgame.
Yeah. And actually, I just realised there was a sneaky threat in the position from black. Black was threatening to use his knight, pick it up and take a pawn on that left side, attacking kind of the white queen. There would have been tension between the queens, and that would have won black a bit of material. So he has prevented all threats now, Wesley. So, yeah, again, sometimes you might be reluctant to trade off a set of bishops when you have the bishop pair, but black's bishop was just too strong in the centre. And as Ivanka mentions, maybe that trade would have led to an easier attack against black's isolated pawn in the centre. So Levon Aronian retreats, no trades yet, and maximum tension. The black bishop stepping back also has ideas of the black queen sliding towards the centre and then utilising herself and the dark squared bishop on the same diagonal, pointing towards the white king. So black's bishop is a very, very important piece. Levon Aronian choosing to preserve it.
Yes, and I must say that despite the computer's evaluation, I think this position is very complex.
Yeah.
I would not say that white has an advantage, so to speak.
No.
I mean, definitely there's a full fight going on, because basically every single minor piece has a role in the position. White's bishops, one is defensive, one is aggressive. Black's minor pieces, the bishop and the knight, very well placed. And like you say, the attack with the f-pawn that black has in mind is brewing. You know, 2 moves away and that black pawn could be on the f4 square and threatening to march forward.
Yep, definitely many plans in the position for Levon Aronian. Wesley So needs to organise his forces.
That's not easy to do. I mean, what would you be thinking of?
I mean, I want to move that white rook in the corner just for the sake of it, just because it's not doing anything. But the question is where. Maybe as well you can try to improve the white light squared bishop, but that does involve some risk. If you push any pawns in front of the white king, it could backfire later on. So, yeah, you have to be very, very careful with white.
Yes, I mean, I'm also tempted to push a pawn, but at the same time, I realise that might be a red flag to a pawn advance. OK, so Wesley goes for your strategy, which is just to improve the only piece that wasn't working. And
defending the white queen, because the white queen was loose. There were some tactical ideas against it, so white just defending everything.
So is now the time to strike, push forward some pawns.
He's played it,
Levon
Ivanka.
says yes, absolutely. And
F for forward, he pushes his f-pawn. And that, again, signalling the attack to Wesley So. The evaluation bar isn't a fan, but from a human point of view, this is very, very natural, very tempting. If that black pawn continues its advance down the board, one square, another square, it's going to be deadly. White's king is simply going to perish. And it's just a battering ram that's getting ready to knock down the gates of White's king.
And David, I have to ask you this. I'm just looking at the players' cameras, and Levon seems to me quite fidgety right now.
He's excited.
Excited. This, I was going to ask, what's he betraying?
I think he knows he's on the brink of victory. He's 2-0 up in today's match, and he's got a position that he likes. Levon Aronian loves this when he can attack and push pawns and strike with his pieces.
Because I've personally never seen him
this fidgety.
This fidgety, like with his glasses, he's not quite comfortable with his posture and the way he's sitting, and it's just like...
Yeah, I mean, I've faced him many, many times over the board, and he's always doing the same gestures, right? Always
like this,
stretching out, but
stretching, kind of like quite like not aggressive posturing, but confident posturing.
Definitely, just showing his opponent who's boss. It's often when he's in a good position as well. But yeah, you're right though. With his face, with his hands like so close to the face, it's rare to see him that excitable, that fidgety. But meanwhile, one move from Wesley. So he's brought his bishop to the side, attacking Black's rook with this dark squared bishop as well. So Wesley, he's trying to persuade Levon Aronian to take that bishop with the black knight in the centre of the board. Black's knight, though, is the key piece. That black knight, if it gets kicked away, if it gets traded, suddenly I think the black position falls apart. There are too many holes in Black's position. It's too loose. So Black's knight is necessary. And Wesley, so just asking the question of Levon Aronian, just saying, OK, now you don't have time enough to push pawns, but if you want to get rid of my strong bishop, attacking your rook, then you have to trade off my knight. I expect Levon Aronian will actually just move his rook that's under fire, but the question is where? And, OK, interesting move there from Wesley. So, just, again, evaluation bar, not liking it too much, but this is human chess. He's done a very good job of posing a difficult question to Levon Aronian. Where would you put that black rook, Ivanka?
Yeah, I was going to ask that question to you because okay, I can see certain possibilities. If you step forward with the rook, keep it on the F line, there is even tactical possibilities in the air. I'm not sure if it works, but it allows White to actually break the integrity of his pawn structure on the left and push forward with a pawn because...
Okay, we might well see it.
We might well see it. I mean, but this is very direct play, you know, open up the light squares. And I can see the attraction of keeping the rook on the F line as well, because then it backs up the plan of pushing the F pawn for forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned pushing White's pawns. That would be the C pawn for White, trying to attack White, the black central pawn. Maybe we can show this just because it's quite a nice idea. I'm not sure we'll see this from Wesley. It's very, very committal to push a pawn forward. But now we see why maybe White has lined up his queen and rook on this line. Because if we do see a trade, if Black takes the bait, takes White pawn, then suddenly, whoops, queen takes rook check, sacrificing the queen, and after the bishop recaptures, the white rook replaces the queen, and this is a deadly check. Black can only block in one way, the rook can step back, but this is checkmate. The white rook and the white dark square bishop protecting it do trap the black king. So this is very, very tempting. It looks like a really innocent position right now, but one move might set up a checkmating threat. That is why chess is so incredible. You need to adapt to the new pace and adapt to the new threats. I think the problem with this pawn push for White is that Black might be able to just bypass it.
Yeah.
And now if White does get greedy and take this pawn, then we might see why Black has used his rook on this line, because now they can stack up, and that's an awkward pin, hitting the white bishop and hitting the white queen behind it.
Yeah, and we also have to remember that the knight can capture the bishop at any time. So that's something to calculate as well. But the idea is in the air.
Yeah, and talking of ideas, this for sure is Levon Aronian's next idea. He wants to kind of push this pawn forward and punch through towards the white king. And if this pawn does march forward, it's game over for White's king. I think Wesley needs to be really, really careful right now. Despite what the evaluation bar says, White is the one under pressure.
Yeah. And whilst Wesley is taking a pause, I want to share with you some more ideas of chess variants. Yeah. Perhaps Wesley would like to do this one, particular one. It's from Nia, who says it would be interesting if the players switched colours after 15 moves. What crazy strategies would happen? Perhaps some fun chaos?
And how would you actually start your game, knowing that after 15 moves?
Yeah, you'd have to switch, and it's
just you kind of ruin your own position just because you know you'll get a great position after you switch.
But then your opponent will be doing the same thing.
Yeah,
as well.
so it's just going to be two ruined
chaos.
positions, against each other.
I like that idea. Very clever.
Could be fun.
And JP says, a game where rooks, knights and bishops switch roles whenever they are on each other's row.
Oh.
So
I think I've played that one. It's extremely difficult.
yes.
Yeah, so if the knight starts on its starting square, if it moves towards the centre, if it's on the same line as the bishop starts the game, it becomes a bishop.
Whoa.
And then it might move again, then it becomes a queen, and then it becomes a king. Well, like the same movements of a king, not the same value. And yeah, it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I
that
played
sounds
that
fun.
one before. I think it was called Monster Chess.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yes, there's quite a few chess variants that are quite entertaining.
Yeah.
One of my favourites is refusal chess.
Oh, what's that?
So you get one refusal per move. So basically you say to your opponent, no, sorry, I don't want you to play that move.
That's the most polite refusal ever.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah, because, okay, what would it normally look like?
No!
You are not allowed to do that move.
Don't want. That's how
You
I
can only do it once during a game?
No, you can do it on every turn. But you can only, you can only do it once, though, on that turn.
You can bluff your opponent, then you play a bad move, and then they refuse it, then you play the best move after.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of... So anyway, I like that one. OK, but we do have a move on the board, and that is not one that was on my radar at all. Wesley has pushed his H-pawn 2 squares forward. I thought that he would consolidate his pieces, improve those.
One square forward.
What is this?
One square forward, Ivanka.
Yeah.
He's actually created a square for the white queen, I think, to sit on. The white queen actually wants to act as a defender. It wants to bring itself across to the square that white pawn just came from, to the H line, and just protect and defend the white king.
But,
it's very odd. I agree.
Was it on your radar as well?
Not at all. I don't think I would have considered this unless you gave me 10, 20 minutes to just get deep into the position. And maybe just by process of elimination, you stumble across the fact there's nothing better. But yeah, either way. That tends to be a trend with the top players ever since Alpha Zero came out in 2017. When in doubt, push your H-pawn. No matter whether it's good, bad, no matter whether you're attacking or being attacked, just push this pawn forward.
It can never sort of be a blunder. Okay, I guess sometimes it can be a blunder, but...
Sometimes you weaken your own king, but you could get towards the enemy king with this pawn as well. Yeah, I think he wants to, long-term, bring the white queen across and then use this pawn to start attacking the black queen, because the black queen is supremely well-placed right now on the same line as the white king. Oof.
Wow, I'm impressed.
Once you've overcome the shock, Ivanka, do you like it, or
I
do you
love
hate
it.
You
No,
like
no, I have to say I really like it. I like the ingenuity behind that kind of move, because, first of all, it would never, ever have occurred to me to deliberately play what I consider a weakening move, weakening in the sense that, it just makes the white king a little bit more vulnerable, and all to do with switching the queen over to that rook square. Amazing stuff.
Yep, amazing, surprising. Also, maybe another idea is that if the black pawn pushes forward, we mentioned f for forward, black's f pawn, it has started advancing. If it steps forward again, maybe the white queen can blockade it, because now the black knight will never be able to retreat to attack that square. White's pawn has actually taken away a square from the black knight. Maybe it wanted to retreat to and then jump again. So Wesley just controlling things. Sometimes that's what you need to do in chess. If you're feeling you're losing control, just take a move or two, take a timeout, take control over the squares.
Yes. And also, I'm just getting very excited because my idea could come into play as well. If you do push the pawn forward and you make your move, which is push the pawn, attack the queen, then there's ideas of rook takes knight on the board.
Ah, yeah, we can show this actually.
Yeah,
Maybe this is the hidden idea behind Wesley So's move. It took us a while because it's so mysterious, it's so deep, it's so genius. But if the black pawn does push forward, as you mentioned, Ivanka, trying to destabilize the white position, trying to wreck the shelter in front of white's king, then suddenly the white pawn can step forward, and if the black queen takes the bait, if the black queen says, oh, it's a free pawn, I can capture this, then suddenly rook takes knight, and again this idea we highlighted earlier on, just in a different format. The white rook would be captured, and after queen takes rook, we would see a check and a checkmate incoming against the black king.
Okay.
Here we see the black king would be trapped, and we might well see this type of idea land on the board, because Levon Aronian, He did not care about this pawn push. He has continued with his plan, and now we are expecting either the white pawn to step forward, setting that cunning trap where white can go for that checkmating idea 3 moves down the line if black is careless, or if white wants to just stabilise and be safe, then the white queen can blockade the advance of this pawn. And now we see the other secondary reason. OK, Wesley has gone for this. This is the more controlled approach. And now we see the other reason behind this pawn push. It's taken this key square away from the black knight. Black's knight can no longer come and attack the white queen. Wow, Wesley, so creative, but...
Effective.
Yeah, effective as well. What an idea. This innocent-looking pawn push by white has improved his position enormously.
Wow.
And, OK, the black pawn hitting the white bishop can retreat. Maybe as well, there will be ideas later on of white's sacrificing, and it's so tempting. I'm not sure whether it works, but white's rook can take this pawn, and look at this. If white's rook captures the knight right now, so many threats. The white rook coming up to trap the black king, but also this bishop coming out. Look how many pieces are lined up on the same diagonal. So many targets.
It's on the board.
Wesley's played it.
He's done it.
Let's go back to the players. This looks like it might be a massive surprise for Levon Aronian. Wesley, super sharp.
This is the Wesley So that we know. He is back, you guys.
He's back. He's taking his chances. He's quick. He's spotting these really deep ideas. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best players in the world in terms of intuition, in terms of natural talent. And he's showing it now after a couple of shaky games.
Yeah.
Levon Aronian in big, big trouble, needs to react to this shock. I don't think Levon spotted this. It looks like white's bishop was just under attack. Everyone would retreat normally, but Wesley seizing the opportunity. I mean, even after calculating that line, even after showing it on the board, I'm still not 100% of the evaluation, but the fact that the bar is slightly on white's side does show that Wesley has found the right path.
And I can tell you, Levon Aronian doesn't like his position either, because he was just shaking his head. That move that Wesley just played came like a bolt from the blue. Levon, judging from his body language, seems to have missed it.
It's about the black king now. It's all about the white light squared bishop. Look at the bishop next to the white king. It's stuck. It's not been doing anything the whole game, but in a couple of moves now, it's getting ready to spring to life and use this long diagonal, this light squared diagonal towards the black king. And if it comes to life, I think that's game over.
Yeah.
So,
and there's a threat in the air, which is just simply the rook is going to go all the way down to the top of the board, give a deadly check to the black king.
Yeah,
that's massive. You know, you need to do something about that immediately.
Yeah.
And this is why Levon Aronian uses his queen to defend that very important square at the top of the board.
Yeah, so he's stacked up the black rooks, and as Jovanka mentions, now the queen has discovered this protection of the key E8 square. So white's rook cannot give a check right now, not safely at least. But minimum here, white's bishop, white's dark squared bishop that's under fire, can just step back, can just retreat. And Wesley has full control over the position. He's actually sacrificed. We should clarify, he gave up a rook, but he got a pawn and a knight in return. So a rook worth 5, pawn and knight worth 4. He's only sacrificed 1 point, Wesley So, but the bishops have sprung to life. And as long as he keeps them both on great diagonals, I think he's going to win this game.
Yep. And in addition, he's won all the light squares as well.
Every single light square now belongs to white, essentially.
Yes, exactly. That bishop sitting close to the white king, well, it's going to be a monster soon. And, OK, Wesley doesn't have so much of a choice as to what he can play here. I mean, he could...
OK, I thought he had a vast choice, Jovanka.
No, yeah,
maybe
he can,
white's,
actually, yeah.
white's bishop that is attacked, white's dark square bishop can step back and block the 2 black rooks.
That's natural.
That's natural, that's fine, that's safe. Or the white light square bishop can come out. It has done. I was going to say as well, white's pawn could step forward. Remember that H pawn that Wesley started pushing a few turns ago? That could kick away the black queen right now. He's actually given up a piece, Wesley So he's a complete rook down, but there is a pin. So white's bishop is pinning that black rook in the centre. OK, has he gone for the right choice? That's the question. He has so many tempting options, Wesley So, but he's gone for the most risky, the most double-edged decision.
I preferred, I'll be honest, stepping back with the dark squared bishop, because then you have control. And here it just feels...
I think he just wanted to seize the moment. He was worried that nothing else, that he wouldn't get another shot, another opportunity to get his bishop to this diagonal. The question for white now is, oh, wow, he just takes a pawn back. That is so super calm from Wesley So. He's a whole rook down. and he takes the time out to just capture a pawn.
And, well, look at this from Aronian. The king is out.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, I know. When do you see that? The king come out into the open as a cool method of defence.
Yeah, the top players do it more than anyone else, though. They sense the right moments to bring their kings out for a walk, for an adventure. And the reason Black's done that, walked his king into the eye line of the white queen, is simply because he wanted to get out of the pin. White's bishop was putting too much pressure on that diagonal. Black's king needed to evacuate that line. So now there is a dilemma for Wesley. So does he take Black's rook in the middle of the board with his bishop, give up this beautiful bishop, but gain some material back in the process? Or does he just continue playing a whole rook down? How can he continue attacking? It's not clear anymore.
No.
If he takes that black rook, we should clarify as well, with his bishop, then Black's rook will recapture and Black will be up. OK, he does take it.
To take it back, but Black is now a piece. Sorry.
A piece for 2 pawns, yeah. And, OK, what next? That's the question.
I'm thinking, David, I'm trying hard to think of something, but...
OK, Wesley so steps back.
Yeah, maybe Wesley just has to bank on his pawn advantages there on the left side, because he's a piece down.
OK, but he is also setting a trap. Black's rook is under fire from the white queen. White's queen now attacking that black rook in the middle. If that black rook gets greedy and takes the white pawn next to it, then White's queen is actually going to go up on the diagonal all the way into the top corner and check the black king from the side, and that would actually be deadly. White would win instantly. So there's still a lot of danger, despite what the evaluation bar says. Black's king is a massive target. Yeah. Black has to be super careful. Yeah,
definitely. Levon now has to consolidate his position. You know, he has to take care of his king at every single opportunity. And, you know, I personally would step forward with my queen or step backwards with the queen. You introduce the queen as a defender just to withstand the current storm.
Yeah, and he's withstanding the storm by offering that trade of queens, also, meanwhile, protecting the black rook with his queen. So Black's rook and queen now just erecting this really strong barrier. How is White going to break through those? White's queen maybe lacking some squares to go to. You could actually push a pawn to attack that black queen. You could push the pawn in front of the white king 2 squares forward, attack that black queen. Bit of a sneaky move there, but I think Black's queen would just retreat. OK, he's played it. Black's queen has to keep in contact with her rook, so she steps back. Black couldn't play en passant there, couldn't take that pawn as if it just moved once, because that black pawn on the F-line was pinned. So Black's queen had to step back, the only move to survive. Now, Wesley, still down a bishop for 2 pawns. Suvanka, do you think it's enough? No. Shaking your head? No.
I mean... There's danger in the board. There's undoubtedly that is the case. But the problem is that I do feel that Levon has too many protectors for the king. And I just think it's not easy as well for Wesley So to get his pawns there on the left motoring. Having said that, Wesley is trying.
Yep, he has to try. Yep. So his pawn protects another pawn. Now the black queen is coming across. It will take Levon Aronian a few moves to consolidate, to fully organise his pieces, to keep them nice and protected. But the question for White is, how does he profit from these few moves?
And there's a threat on the board as well.
Yeah.
The black rook is threatening to come down to the 3rd row and attack the queen.
Yeah. The white queen is a bit stuck as well. She needs to stay protecting her king because White's pawns have marched so far forward on that right side. OK, Wesley So... both sides bringing their king actually towards the centre. He's just put his king on a light square as well, just trying to save it from any potential checks later on. OK, Wesley, yeah, we said this is the Wesley So we know and love, but it was, and then I think just one slip has let Levon Aronian back in the game, and Aronian pouncing on the opportunity.
And it's not looking good for Magnus Carlsen either in his game 3 against Timur Ajabov. The bar just jumping up for Timur Ajabov. Now, that won't matter if Wesley So loses this game or plays a draw in this game. Magnus will still be the winner, but he loves to win his games, Magnus. Is there some drama going on?
Yep, and guess what it is from Magnus Carlsen? It's a queen sacrifice again.
Wow!
So he's already sacrificed his queen once today. He did it famously yesterday against Giri to win a spectacular game. And Magnus taking big risks. It looks like it shouldn't pay off, though. It was a bit of a gamble from Magnus, and it might backfire. OK, so Levon Aronian just pushing a pawn, creating some safe squares for the black king to hide on. Black's king actually wants to hide on dark squares, if possible. And that's why he pushed a pawn to a light square. The black king will hide later behind it. And Wesley, meanwhile, harassing this black rook, kicking it away, but is it kicking it to a better square, Jovanka?
Yes. But I mean, Wesley doesn't really have a plan other than advancing his pawns on the left, because there's just no way that the rook and the queen can break through at the minute. So why not grit your teeth and see what the dice will roll up. We'll throw up. We'll throw up as well. Throw up. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying.
Meanwhile, Levon Aronian knows what's going on because he brings his rook to a safe square and he's attacking some of those white pawns now on the left. Look at that black rook. It has so many targets on the fourth row. All of white's pawns now on the fourth row are potentially vulnerable. Wesley gives a check. It might just be a spite check.
Yes, it is a spite check because the king covers all the squares along the top row, sorry.
Yeah, so black's king nicely protected, super safe. It feels like Wesley has just run out of ammunition. The white queen alone will not cause any damage. She goes and takes a pawn, but she has completely abandoned her king. White's queen is so far away now from where the action is actually going to take place. It feels like right now, Levon Aronian can even use the black queen and come and take a pawn. White's pawn on the g4 square is juicy, it's hanging.
And he's done. And he does it because the king is going to hide in the corner. The h6 square is going to hide in front of its pawns.
It's going to be a third defeat in a row for Wesley, so White's king is just too open now. Nothing else to say. Black's king is going to hide, like you say, Jovanka, among its pawns, and White's king has nowhere to hide. OK, Wesley still using the white queen on the 7th rank now, pinning that black bishop. Maybe that white queen also acting as a defender. It can come back and guard its own king on this white light square diagonal. Still looks like it should be winning for Aronian. OK, he does put his king on a very safe square, and actually that's a piece sacrifice. White's queen can take the bishop next to it, but if that happens, black will go for a checkmating attack and succeed. Yeah, scary for Wesley so right now.
I was also going to say, he doesn't even need a checkmating attack. A draw is sufficient, so if he wants to...
True.
He can just accept the repetition of moves, although checkmating is much better than drawing.
Yeah, and checkmating is going to happen. Look at that white king. It's just too weak. It's defenseless. And Wesley so leaning back. Is he getting ready to resign? Is he going to... I mean, there's nothing else to do here for Wesley. It's that difficult, his position. Levon Aronian, he weathered the storm, defended calmly, and... now he's on the attacking side. OK, we're going to see queen takes bishop, and will we see a draw from Levon Aronian, or will he go for the checkmate? OK, he repeats the position, and there we go. It is a draw. Levon takes the draw and seals today's match.
Congratulations to Magnus Carlsen. He is the winner of the Maltwater Champions Chess Tour 2021.